My name is Edgar Britt. I was born in the city of Chelsea, Massachusetts. I was born in 1931. Well, I was 10 years old when they bombed Pearl Harbor, and I had three brothers that were drafted that served in the Second World War, and I wanted to be a soldier, so I got parental consent and joined the Army at 18 years of age. My basic training was done at Fort Dix, New Jersey. I was in the 60th Field Artillery for basic training, then transferred to Fort Bliss, Texas for what they call individual advanced training, and that's where I earned the title of artilleryman. When they alerted the unit and we moved up to Fort Custer, Michigan, then drew weapons or guns for artillery, and then we convoyed by convoy vehicles up to Sault Ste. Marie, Michigan. They're up there as anti-aircraft artillery defense against airstrikes against the locks. If we lost the locks up at Sault Ste. Marie, there'd be no waterborne transportation between the Great Lakes. To get out of Sault Ste. Marie, Michigan, from Fort Brady, I re-enlisted for airborne, and I was then sent to the 82nd Airborne at Fort Bragg to the 80th AAA Battalion. So I was still artillery, and then when the Vietnamese War started, I found there was an opportunity. They were taking all MOSs and retraining us if we re-enlisted for Special Forces.
These are troops from Fort Bragg, North Carolina, engaged in a demonstration of their combat power.
On 12 October 1961, President Kennedy came to Fort Bragg. Right, the division was their finest. They had over 18,000 troops were lined up. What happened is we had a captain that had a cutout of the Special Forces patch. What he did, he pointed to the first flash of lightning, and he said, by land. That's when an A-team of the 12 troops marched in front of the president. Then he pointed at the second one, he said, by sea, and that's we had three divers under the water in the lake, and they jerked on a line, and they all surfaced. And now it's repeated over and over. Everybody from Rambo to the SEALs of this guy coming up out of the water with his weapon. Well, we did it back in '61. Then he said, by air, and we free-falled out, shot what do we call a hop and pop. We only fall several hundred feet and then activated our chutes. And I did see the president as he drove by, and rendered all respect to a great president, saluted as he drove by. Special Forces go back to the first Special Service units known as the Devil's Brigade in the Second World War.
The U.S. Army Special Forces, they are among the most highly trained military personnel the world has known. Each of them has been trained in a variety of skills which in more conventional organizations would be distributed among two or more individuals.
It's extensive training, physical training, and then you become a specialist in your particular military occupation. In my case, they decided I'd be better off in operations and intel. Operations, you'd plan operations such as plans that would be recon an area, targeting particular areas, targeting objects in an area, and the intelligence portion would be knowing if there's any bad guys in that area you're looking at. First time I was 1964 that I went to Vietnam. Sonsonot is the big air base down in Saigon. You fly in there, commercial type aircraft, and then I was taken by military aircraft up to Nha Trang, that's on the China Sea, and that's where the 5th Special Forces headquarters was mounted. We were advisors, as the saying goes, but Normally the advisor was up front and the Vietnamese was well to the rear. Sometimes it gets very boring, when you're not doing anything. But then when you do something, you say, what the heck am I doing here? The ones you'd be most concerned about is walking into an ambush on the ground. When you walk in thick foliage and you don't know what's on the other side of that foliage. And that's where recon is most important. We were in what they call a Kaluk-Dai mountain range, and there was part of the supply system, and that's what we were looking for. That basically was our mission, to interrupt the infiltration, deterrent type mission, try to channelize the movement from the north to the south. One particular incident, we found several huts built up. A lot of American rice, unfortunately, were stored inside them, but they had put the rice bags on top of explosive to seal them. We had intelligence where it was. We went to recon the area, then we got engaged in there at the time. So once engaged, then you rush towards the firepower. We routed them with small arms fire. We had a limited body count, which we don't go into. And that's when we decided to destroy the contents of the built-up area. Well, we started then burning down the hutchments, and one of them, as I was walking away, blew up, and we estimated there's probably 1,500 pounds of explosive there. If the fact that I turned and walked down the hill from that burning hutch, if I had stood and watched the burning, I probably would have been injured. See, what they would do, the VC would come down from the north into the south, and they'd go in the villages that were close to the western side of Vietnam. They'd go into the villages and demand food and stuff. They were bad to their own people. We had a case where we had what they call a med op. We take medics with us and go into a village and treat the people for various ailments and wounds or diseases. And we treated one village near Hanoi, Vietnam, and the VC come in and cut off several feet in toleration for accepted support from the Green Berets. In my field, where we'd sometimes find intelligence that was worthy, and particularly if it was a moving target, we would request support. And sometimes you'd get a message back or a call back and says, politically declined. In other words, don't touch them, let them keep going. And that was hard for a combat serviceman to do. Occasionally I would carry an M79 with me in a sidearms. One incident, we were on patrol up in the highlands. We ran into a heavier force than ours. We decided to withdraw around the area, and as we were scurrying down the ridge line, my bandolier that contained the M79 rounds wrapped around my neck, and it flung me to the ground. And I said that wasn't going to happen anymore, because when it did that, I lost several of the live rounds. We had vests that could put mortar rounds into to be carried. I decided if I could make a shotgun or a hunter's vest out of it, come up with a little idea, presented it to the suggestion committee, and sure enough, it floated, and now it is part of the initial issue of the United States Army.
This uniquely trained team of Special Forces soldiers volunteered to take part in a secret mission to rescue battered American prisoners of war located 23 miles west of Hanoi in North Vietnam.
Sante's the name of the prison also, but the Air Force named it, a code name was called Camp Hope. And what it was, we assumed there were 70 American prisoners of war there. I was what they call overflight. Yeah, I didn't go on the ground, boats on the ground. We knew they were there because they had methods of doing things. Like they had a particular day they could wash clothes. Well, they left signals on the drying clothes by using small bundles as a dot and a pair of trousers as a dash, and they could send it. And the Air Force has a unique system of code words like K, we are here, on that. And what happened is we stopped flights over it. And in the meantime, what we understood after that due to the monsoons and the rains, so a lot of people come down with dysentery, and they moved both the security and the POWs over, and they put just a small force back into the compound, which we engaged. We went in, was on the ground 28 minutes, and to our disappointment, there were no POWs there. There was a force that resisted us. We did well. The flight back was almost absolutely in silence. We failed in a mission, and the mission was never leave a comrade behind. And we felt we did. And we got home just a few days before Thanksgiving. We met at Bragg. The big bands were there. The families were there. All the stars and bars of the base were there. A lot of handshakes, a lot of promises of medals to be given out, which were. And we weren't happy about it because it was very sad. To be honest with you, I didn't enjoy Thanksgiving at all, being home.
Because of the success of the raid, the Department of Defense received its first comprehensive list of prisoners from the North Vietnamese government. The raid proved to be the driving force for the North Vietnamese to return to the Paris peace talks.
The war itself was a good goal. We were trying to save the democracy and the independence of South Vietnam. The route at the end of it was heartbreaking because, you know, we had 50,000 plus MIAs and killed in action. It just doesn't go away. I go to the wall up in Wickham Park when they bring the traveling memorial wall. I always leave a thank you note, a rose and a little flag at each panel that has the name of one of my comrades on it. And I thank them for allowing me to come home.